welcome to the show. Thanks for taking your Friday afternoon to come talk with us. You said your industry is very unique, so I'm excited to learn about that. And anything else you can kind of teach us about what you do within real estate.
Sure. So I don't know if like the way that I do real estate is unique, but kind of my philosophy about it and why I do it is probably more of what's unique. So I started out my career. My title was Weapon System Cost Analyst. So I was a cost estimator for the Air Force as a civilian. So I used to make massive spreadsheets trying to predict financial scenarios like 20, 30 years into the future. So I was just a big abstract numbers cruncher. So I learned all about finances and metrics and accounting and, net present value and just different financial metrics through my original career as a cost estimator. So kind of learned all those skills in my professional life, but my personal life, I was really interested in just doing stuff, building things, making things, working on houses, fixing houses up. I was just more into that, like the physical aspect of it.
Yeah.
So like putting those two things together, I had all the right tools to invest in real estate, basically.
Yeah. And how long were you a cost estimator for, you said Air Force?
Yeah, so I started out, I spent 7 years as a contractor, worked for a company called Booz Allen Hamilton that's no longer, they're now Booz and Company. So worked for them for 7 years, and then I worked as a civil servant, actually as a civilian for the Air Force for 7 more years.
Okay.
And then
is that stuff with military that you can't talk about? Because I have a question of like, what's the weirdest situation you had to analyze?
It's not really stuff. I never worked on classified info. Everything that I worked on was none of it was classified. If you took all of it and put it together, it could become classified, but nothing was super crazy. Probably the strangest thing I ever worked on was the Air Force wanted a portable oxygen concentrator, but they wanted it to be able to produce so many liters per minute of oxygen, but they also wanted it to be like portable by one person, and they wanted it to be able to run for a certain amount of time. And they just wanted all this stuff that when you put it together, it was impossible. Like they wanted to run on a battery. I mean, it was like a flux capacitor type thing. And a lot of the projects were just weird stuff like that.
Interesting.
So crazy.
Yeah. And so my job would have been to try and figure out how much money they should ask Congress for to execute these projects.
Seems easy enough.
Yeah. So it's like, I need to tell them how much they need to develop it, because we'd have to pay a contractor to just get it to the point where we could even buy it once they can build it. And then I have to estimate how much we need to maintain it in the field.
I feel like you're racking up some dollars on that stuff.
Yeah, it gets super expensive. But
I'm sure going into like the real estate market, it might have been a relief how much money you were spending.
Right?
Oh yeah. Oh, it's so funny too, because when I would analyze a property for real estate, it would be so simple.
Right.
Like so simple compared to what I would do for work. But that was by design too, because working in that field and trying to estimate things like 10, 20 years in the future, you realize just how little you can predict. And so it almost made the real estate investments, how people can kind of get paralysis by analysis. They can, especially if it's their first time investor, they can just worry over every little thing. Like, do I have enough money set for this? Do I have enough set for this? And so that background in cost estimating, I was like, there's a rule of large numbers. And basically once your estimate's big enough, you're going to screw up so many ways in both directions that it's going to be about right.
Yeah.
No matter what, you overshoot one thing, you undershoot something else. So I would literally analyze the very first year that I owned a property and nothing else after that.
Really?
That's awesome.
Yeah. I would just analyze, like, I would buy things that were already cash flowing, when I first started out, and then I just say, how's it going to do the first year? What's the leverage cash on cash? And am I okay with it? And then just be like, okay. And I wouldn't even mess with like, I'd kind of like take some stuff into consideration, like if it immediately needed something huge, like a roof or a driveway. But other than that, I just kind of come up with a factor based on its overall condition and call it good.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's awesome that it's just a different perspective, because usually people getting into real estate haven't done the number analysis side of things. So they look at it as like intimidating. Like, I can't learn all that stuff. Like, that's impossible. Only geniuses analyze property like that.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be intimidating, because it really doesn't have to be complex, especially I'm in Dayton, Ohio. So there's nothing super fancy about the market out here. I guess in the last like 5 years, maybe it's changed, but when I haven't bought anything in a while. I've kind of just been chilling out. But when I was doing it, it was like, okay, basically you don't count on any appreciation. If you get it, you're happy, but everything's pretty stable. It's a cash flowing market. So, that was just all you had to worry about.
Right. Yeah. I'm excited to learn about that Dayton, the Ohio area. I'm buying my first Airbnb out in Akron. Don't know where that is in orientation to Dayton, but it's my first out of state thing. So I'm kind of curious about that market and how that's all going. But
Yay.
Are all of your properties in Ohio then, or in Dayton?
Yeah. Everything in terms of rentals, everything's in Dayton.
Okay. And how many do you have?
I'm actually not that big. I have 2 duplexes. Then I have a mixed use building that I'm rehabbing. It's half commercial, half residential.
Yeah.
And I sold an apartment building a couple of years ago that I owned, and then I just have like my own house, and then I have some land. And that's kind of being so small.
Yeah.
That's kind of, I think, what makes me a little bit different. When I first started buying properties, I was like, this is pretty easy. Like, I was like, this is not hard. Like, this is not brain surgery. We're not, people tend to put real estate investors on a pedestal and think that they're like guru geniuses. And I'm like, this is.
Do you, as an investor, do you use a property manager on your investment properties? Because Marcus and I were just talking about this, because I'll have an out-of-state investment. So I'm assuming because you're in state, you probably don't have a property manager.
I don't. I would, if it was out of state, I would. But everything is just local to me, so I just do it myself. But anyway, I was like, I can scale this. I was like, this is easy. It's like, as long as I have the capital for down payment, I was like, I might as well just keep going. And as I'm thinking this, my wife is like, she let me know, she's like, this is stressing me out so much. Like, every time someone called with something, I'd be like, oh, I'll go fix it, no big deal. And it wasn't a big deal to me, but like, she would be like stressing about it. And every time it would like add to her stress level. And I'm just here like oblivious to this.
That's what happens to women. Do you guys have kids or no kids?
We don't have kids.
Okay.
No.
So I feel like the house was her baby. And like each time you got a phone call, like she's like freaking out because it's her baby. Yeah. Yeah.
And so here I am thinking like, I'm going to scale this. I'll just keep buying more properties every time we have a 20% down payment, nothing unconventional, just, a real estate investment loan. I'll just get another property. Meanwhile, like, my wife is like dying inside because every phone call on Sunday is bothering her internally. So I kind of took a different tact from that point.
So she put the kibosh on that one.
It wasn't really like she didn't put the kibosh on it, but it was more like, I didn't want to do that to her out of consideration.
Well, that's appreciated, I'm sure.
Yeah. So we took a different tact. Like, there's 2 ways to to have enough money, right? One way is to earn more money. Another way is to spend less money, right? Like
True.
there's two sides to that equation. If you want to be financially stable, you can just go out and make more money, or you can spend less money. So what we did is we had a nice house in the suburbs, you know, kind of your typical middle class, you know, ranch, you know, with a nice grill. Traeger wasn't out back then, but you know, we'd been in the suburbs, like grilling on our Traeger and
Yeah.
you know, hanging out with our suburb neighbors and having a good time. But so I wasn't going to grow in terms of more investments. So we actually decided to sell that property, and so we bought a house for cash in the city. We bought a foreclosure. It had come out of foreclosure, and it was the bank was selling it. And so we bought this is the house I'm in now. We bought this house for cash, fixed it up, and then sold our house in the suburbs. And then so we went basically debt free.
That's awesome.
So that's kind of how I can make it work on not so many properties and still
I mean, it allowed you to not buy properties right now and just kind of like live on what you got. So
yes,
it's proof that you don't need to be this mega huge nationwide company to be financially free.
correct.
It takes a few properties, some number crunching, and you're going to get there.
Are you still doing any other work besides managing your properties, or are you just solely living on the properties?
Yeah, I'm pursuing stuff that I'm passionate about. So
awesome.
What this allowed me to do
is
is
in training to be a stay-at-home dad.
That would be fun. I think that'd be
I'm working for it. That's what I'm going for.
Yeah. I mean, that's analyze, you know, like there's a reason that we invest in real estate. And the reason is, at least I think it should be, it's not to just make a crap ton of money. It's to pursue happiness.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it should,
Absolutely.
the reason we do it should be to do stuff that makes us happy, whatever that is. I mean, maybe, you know, Scrooge McDucking in your pile of gold coins makes you happy. So then you can get huge. But for me, it allowed me to pursue a passion what I had, which was building this cabin out in the country.
Oh, cool.
And so I've been building that cabin and putting it on YouTube, and that's like half of my income now. Like the YouTube
really
Google AdSense revenue, like I make about as much on that as I do through my rental properties.
Really?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's insane.
And so the rentals enabled that, you know, so I spend like 2 or 3 days a week working on that, and then like 2 or 3 days a week working on my rentals.
Huh.
Hey man, you're set.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm
if only I had somebody telling me like make videos, it'll work out for you.
I mean,
you yell that all the time for it.
It can work out. You just have to, you know, you have to put the time into it. You have to be passionate about it. But I mean, if you have a story or a message that people can relate to, then they're going to want to follow your journey.
Yeah.
Like cabins is kind of a random thing, but there's a lot of people that want to build cabins, but they don't have land. They're not physically capable. They maybe are too risk averse to buy land and do it for whatever reason. They're not going to do it, but they still want to like live vicariously through you. So
that's awesome.
You know, they'll just tune in and follow your journey.
That's really cool.
I mean, I haven't stumbled across your videos, but by the end of the show, you're gonna have to let us know how people can find you on YouTube. Cause like I'm on YouTube, if not daily, every other day. Cause we do like tiling, we do landscaping stuff. Like we're always jumping to different projects. And if I haven't done tile in 2 years, like I'm gonna re-up my, oh yeah, I forgot about that part. Or like, oh, it was good to see somebody else do it. So like I'm always on YouTube trying to find people doing something. And even Instagram, there's people that like a daily tip and they'll do something around the house as like a refresher. So those videos, like I'm part of that whole audience that wants that.
Nice.
So,
yeah, that's how I kind of use it that way too. I'll just need to remember how to do something, or even just like a code. I'll have like a code question on this place that I'm fixing up, and it's like I'll just look it up, and usually it's a YouTube video that pops up, and just
Yeah.
it's a great resource.
Oh, absolutely. So are you planning on in the future getting back into buying more after this cabin's done? Because obviously, where are you at with the cabin?
So the cabin is almost done. I think what probably our next goal will be, we love Asheville, North Carolina. And so I think what we will probably try and do is buy a dual use property, that it can be like a vacation property and also an income property somewhere
Yeah.
near Asheville.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And what does your wife do?
My wife, she's an employee benefits broker, health benefits mostly.
Okay.
And she does that. She likes it. And it's a good skill. It's also a good skill to have, just to know about health insurance, and especially in this crazy
Right.
time.
Yeah.
Hopefully she's allowed to work from home and travel with you guys when you go down to North Carolina.
Yeah, and her family, she has family there, so that is the other part of the reason we'd like to go there.
That's cool. When do you see that happening? Whenever the cabin's done, or do you want to take a break after that?
Yeah, so probably once the cabin's done, and then I am working on a property in Dayton. So two of the two duplexes are up and running, and the other property that I have is undergoing like a full rehab.
Okay.
So once that property's done, I think then we'll focus on trying to do North Carolina.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah.
My one general question, because I know that this was hard for me, and I know that it's a kind of a roadblock for people who are not in real estate investing. When you have your full-time job and you say, all right, I'm going to take on the side hustle of real estate, it sounds like what you did. What for you was like all right, I'm done with my day job. I see this is my rationale for going full-time real estate. Like, did you have like a turning point or like a thing you remember that stood out?
It was, I really started to get, I think what pushed me into it was that I really started to not like going to an office and just sit in an office all day. Like it started to get, like, I was like, I can't do this until I retire type of thing. And so real estate was like, okay, this is an alternative way to make money. And I had like, I feel so bad for people that try to make money with no money, because I don't have, to me, money begets money. I don't know, have the answers of how to be successful if you have no money for a down payment. Like I don't know how to do that. Like everything I did was, okay, I have enough money saved. I've got a down payment. I can go buy something that's cash.
You were also smart with your finances prior to that, though. I mean, you weren't like frivolously spending money on, 2-week trips to Jamaica or
no, not at all. Yeah, that was part of our philosophy. Like I said, is we've always been, you can either make more money or you can also spend less money, and we've always kept a firm eye on that spending less money part of the equation.
I feel like my husband and I are kind of in the same boat as you. Like, he and I looked at each other one day and we're like, why are we taking 30 years to pay off this house? This house isn't expensive. It's just, how do we want to live our lives? We want to live our lives a little bit more frugally and like make triple payments on our mortgage. Hell yeah, because it pays off our mortgage that much faster. And then we have, thousands of dollars a month that we can decide to invest, or in like stocks or bonds or our 401ks, or we can, put that money towards another down payment on another property. So it's how do you want to use your money?
Yeah. And that's something that is like, everyone can keep an eye on. I think more people, basically opportunity cost, like what could that money be doing if it wasn't being spent on this or tied up in this, if that, I don't know how much mortgage interest you're paying a month, $300 in interest, and so much in principal. Like what could that 300 be doing?
Right. Exactly.
And think about that. Or if it's a boat payment or
Right.
I never bought like a sports car
No.
or four-wheelers or boats, whatever people
Right.
do. Like I never did that stuff until later in life.
Right.
Kind of, and I'm 41, so I guess I can't say that much later, but I wanted to have my financial ducks in a row before we started.
And I think Marcus does a really good job of like teaching his son the value of a dollar too. And I'm certainly trying to teach my son too. Like things don't come for free. Everything costs money. It's, do you want to spend your money on this, or would you rather save your money to get a bigger, better toy in like 2 months? It's
Yeah.
like, do you want to wait and save, or do you want to get something right now?
Yeah. And that's hard for kids to wrap their head around, but I'm hoping that if I can just ingrain it in his brain at 6,
Mhm.
or hopefully if I talk about it at 6, he'll catch on by 21.
Yeah.
And then
No kidding.
No, I think you guys you're doing the right thing. I think if you teach them about it, eventually that will set in.
yeah.
It may not be right away, but by the time, probably when they're out of high school and and maybe at college and paying for more stuff on their own, all of a sudden they'll start to
Click.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
And
that's
there's
right. My
always,
mom
like,
told me. Yeah.
there's like always those little moments, like we'll be driving the truck and Miles knows that I build houses. So he's just like, yeah, my dad builds houses. And we'll drive to one of the houses and he's like, well, this isn't our house. And I'm like, well, it is our house, but like other people live in it.
Yeah.
He's like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, we own it. But then I'm like, me and Miles don't want to live here. Do you want a place to live? And they say yes. And he's like, okay. And I was like, and then they pay me to live there.
Yeah.
Or they pay us to live there. So we're not going to live here. I'm like, nope. And like, it's starting to click in a little bit.
Right. It will before you even realize it. All of a sudden one day he'll be like, nope, my dad builds houses and he takes care of them, or something like that.
Yeah. And when I was growing up, my dad was always side hustle guy, doing something extra, would like try to cut back at like the day job to take like the side hustle thing. And he was always like the entrepreneur mindset person. And my mom was out of high school, she was working full time, like all day, every day, save money, and then retire. So like I had the yin and yang growing up. So now I'm just trying to balance out where it should be comfortably.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to get Miles to experience, and got 2 other boys, obviously, and trying to get them to understand, to not look at, all right, I got $1 for picking up my room, let's go spend it right away.
Right.
And I'm like, but if you sweep your room every day this week, you'll get $5 and you get a bigger toy.
You know, the cool thing, Marcus, is, and this is a little bit off topic, but they have this new app. It's called Greenlight, and you have to literally check off all of your chores, and then you have to ask your parents for the allowance, and then you can virtually send them their allowance.
So, is that the thing with the card?
It has a debit card attached to it. You can use it as a debit card. Yeah.
Yeah, that's step 2.
Yes.
Whole thing.
Yeah.
He already takes my wallet and plugs it in.
Stop it.
Sure, yeah.
That's funny.
Knows how that works. Knows how to spend it at 6.
I mean, it sounds like you're being a good example for him. Like that's the stuff that I remember is the stuff that I watched my parents.
That's awesome.
It was one thing for them to tell me something, but the stuff I really remember is just the stuff they did, the stuff I did with my dad and stuff.
Yeah.
Remember that.
What was that?
So you always remember that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, you came from analytics. When you left the Air Force and went into real estate, did you just take all of that and create your own spreadsheet on how to analyze properties, or?
Yeah, I mean, I would put a lot of stuff into spreadsheets. Like I basically had like a spreadsheet of our financial life, with kind of out year projections, like, this is our salary this month. this is, this expense. And it was like a balance sheet basically. And you could
Yeah.
kind of go down and say, okay, I'm estimating that by, February of 2022, I'll have saved up, $19,000 or something.
I
And
need
so
you in my life.
but
I
it's
want one of
really
those sheets.
so many people make financial decisions and then wonder about the impact,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Right.
Without knowing. But there's this amazing thing called math.
Yes.
You can know the financial impact of the decision you're making if you can take the time to
Right.
learn how to use a spreadsheet with an amortization schedule or something. If I'm going to take a loan, like I know how much interest I'm going to pay on that loan.
I like to
Like a
use
lot of-
Dave Ramsey's website a lot for those.
yeah. But a lot of people make decisions without knowing that stuff. And I think that's something that's like low hanging fruit that people can fix just because that knowledge is out there.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I was starting to get my, I'll say ducks in a row, but basically it was coming from like my entry into real estate world was the complete opposite. I had a negative money in my account and I'm trying to battle my way out of it. But I had to go into a spreadsheet and I was like, okay, this is my salary. This is my side hustle, what I'm expecting to bring in. I'm Ubering. This is what I'll bring in this month. And then I had my set costs, which is rent, internet, phone, those bills that never change, but they come every month. And then you've got your variable like groceries, gas, like those things that are somewhere in the ballpark of X amount of dollars, or doctor's appointment. Like you may not have one for a month, but when you get one, it's $300.
Right.
So like I would allot hospital or medication and spread that out through a year, just so I knew like monthly where I'm at. Took me like 3-4 hours to find out everything that I was spending money on. It just takes the time to sit down and put it into a spreadsheet. And it was super simple.
Yeah.
And you might as well do it and this is the way that my head thinks, like when you don't have a lot of money, numbers are way easier to work with.
Yeah.
So like start it when you don't have it, and then you can expand it as your bank account expands. But at least you have your like basis. And I truly think like all you have to do is sit down and do it. Like if you sit down and analyze a property and you do that multiple times, like you're going to catch on. And if you start with your finances, that's like step 1 to it. You can analyze yourself and then you can analyze the property.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's critically important. Like it's got to be the first step towards your goals, is just knowing what you're going to make, what you're spending, what you're going to have in the future. And if you're going to have a negative balance, then understanding that you need to change a habit. You need to do something different.
Yeah.
And it helps to know how fast you'll achieve your goals. Like if you're putting out everything in your spreadsheet and you're not going to get there for 15 years or thereabouts, maybe you try and do something different.
Right. Which I know is pretty hard, but I mean, they've got software out there like Mint. I know Mint's like the popular one that will literally categorize your spending habits and put in a nice little like pie chart for you. But I don't know if people are scared to talk about it or scared to realize what they're doing to their bank accounts.
I think it makes them uncomfortable. Like, money's one of those weird things that our society has like poo-pooed. Like we can't talk about that.
But we want all of it, but don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's strange.
It is.
Oh, sorry, were you gonna say something?
No, I was agreeing with you. I think it is important. I do see that attitude a lot though, or the whole, like, you deserve it, buy it.
Oh my God. My husband says that all the time. I'm like, I don't care if I deserve it or not. Do we have the money for it? That's the
You might well deserve it, but maybe you should or shouldn't buy it. Like it's not necessarily the answer isn't always get that thing.
Right.
I agree.
Right. Do you guys watch Parks and Rec?
No.
Yeah.
So treat yourself. Like when they're having a stressful day or they're down, Donna and Tom Haverford in that show would go on treat yourself outings. So they'd go to the mall and just buy whatever they wanted. And during those, I'm having so much anxiety.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing? Just buying stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not that person.
That's one of the things too that I always remind myself, because I think everybody finds themselves coveting things, right? Like you see something, you want to buy it, you obsess over it. And I sometimes have to remind myself, like, okay, what was the last time that I did that? And I bought the thing. How long did I stay happy about that purchase after the fact? You know,
Yeah.
like did that bring me happiness like every day for a year? Chances are, like, I was excited about it for maybe a week.
Yeah.
And then I stopped thinking about it.
Yeah.
You know, so like when you want something and it's expensive, like just think about that. Be like, you know what, did that bring me like long lasting quantifiable happiness, or did I just start fixating on something else?
Yeah.
I don't know. The coat I just bought like 4 months ago, I've worn like 55 times. So that brought me a lot of happiness. Thanks, guys.
But that's like functional because we live in the Midwest. We need coats.
I
But
know,
it's
but
like-
it was very expensive, but it's so pretty.
Yeah.
And the answer isn't always the same, but
Right.
sometimes it's like you're just going to move on to the next thing to
Right.
Yeah.
obsess over.
We were just talking, we're renovating a basement right now. So me and the guys are down there. I'm laying tile. The foreman was like, we're in a conversation. He goes, do you realize the amount of people in America that probably pay their car payments on a credit card? Like, do you think they realize what they're doing?
Are they
Just
paying
like-
it on the credit card to get miles and then pay it off with their bank account? Or
He
are they
was just saying in general, like
Got
people
it.
pay their card out with a credit card. So just piling debt on top of debt. And we're like, at the end of the day, we got to realize that like if you have cash, you can pay for it, but then some things you shouldn't put on a credit card.
right?
And that's the one you mentioned, David Ramsey. My sister had talked to me about that, and I was like, that's super fantastic. You're getting your finances in order. And she's like, sweet, do you want to jump in on it? And I was like, I can't. And she's like, what do you mean you can't? And I was like, I can't, like my world is not, I can't live debt free. It's impossible because
Yeah.
I finance homes. So like personally, yes, like I'm not going to buy jet skis on a credit card.
Mhm.
That's not my style, but like in my overall, like I'm going to have debt until I'm done working. It's inevitable.
We
Yeah.
are so close to paying off our house, like we can taste it. We're so
And I don't mean to make it sound like I think everyone should be debt free, because it's, as a numbers cruncher, I know that it's a mathematical fact that if you want to scale a real estate business, that there's no better way to do it than with leverage, right?
Yeah.
Like it is undisputed. If you want to get big, if you want to gain income fast, like the fastest, best way to do it is to borrow money. Like no
Yeah.
question about it. Just for me, it came back to like, I needed to maximize every property because of that stress issue. Like more tenants means more calls means, and granted I could have hired property manager, but I have a feeling that wouldn't have insulated us from that stress.
Yeah.
So I personally, like my philosophy personally was, okay, a little bit less debt. Each property is a little bit more profitable, but for the people that don't have that stress level, then yeah, for sure, there's no better, faster way than to leverage, and assuming you're making good decisions.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You got to hope that you're making the good decisions, but it like led us into the conversation of good debt and bad debt. Like I'm trying to get all the good debt because that means that my business is growing, but I want to eliminate bad debt, which are like the toys and the extras and stuff like that. But I think it comes in stages. Like people have to understand, and that's why like the book that like hit home for me when I read it was Rich Dad Poor Dad, about assets and liabilities. Once you get like a foundation of how that works, like not just know the words, but like understand that if I implemented that in my life, what would it look like? And once you put yourself in that position, you kind of see and you get more of a reference of it. And then you can start leaning into like the good debt and what good debt versus bad debt would be, rather than just eliminate debt in general. But I think you need to be able to get in the mindset of eliminating debt to get into that next stage. And then from that next stage, you leverage, and that's where you grow.
Right.
And the other thing that I was going to say, and it was super funny because I'm sitting here, I'm like talking to a real estate investor, like we're talking here, and he called on one of my listings, and he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna lowball him, just letting you know." And I was like, "Yeah, they're not in the position, they're not really interested, but I want to take you out for lunch because you're huge within the area." And we're sitting there, we're eating, and there's like a 20-second pause. And like all of a sudden he turns to me, he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna give you advice." He's like, "If you borrow $5,000 from a bank, you're screwed. But if you borrow 5 million from a bank, they're screwed." And then just went back to eating. And I like sat on it a little bit. And I was like, I gotta ask you, like, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean? And he's like, "Do you think the bank's not gonna work with you if you have 5 million of their dollars?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, I get it now." And he's like, leverage when you can. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And that, as odd as it was, it sat with me.
No,
So
it's
like the leveraging piece, like you were talking about, inevitable. And you used it yourself with moving from property to property.
right.
I'm assuming that you leveraged with that apartment complex.
I did.
Okay.
The very first property I bought was a duplex. I borrowed on that. I mean, I borrowed money to buy that. I actually, heck, we even sold our car. We sold our car that was paid off and bought a new car that we financed to get the down payment for our first property.
Oh my gosh.
That's dedication right there.
Yeah. So, I
Wow.
mean, absolutely, like leverage is a powerful tool. And so, yeah, the first, second, and third properties that we bought, we borrowed for.
Yeah.
And then the last two we bought, we paid for in cash.
Yeah. And that's nice that those properties are in cash, because when you do go to expand, I mean, you've got that stuff sitting there waiting for you.
Yeah, and we may still, like, I'm not ruling out, like, we may take a first mortgage on one or both of them, you know, when they were both kind of non-conforming properties. Like, it would have been tough to get, we would have had to get creative type financing on them.
Yeah.
So they were cheap enough to just buy them for cash. But once they're done, you know, once they're done and up and running, like, we very well may take a loan on them.
Yeah, that's cool. And when you bought those, you did some work on them. Did you get your quotes before you bought the property, or did you buy it and then kind of reach out to general contractors to take the bid? And
I actually, the first couple of properties I bought were all already cash flowing. They already had tenants. Those ones I just bought, and whenever something would come up, I would get a quote. And I'd always kind of do like a make versus buy decision. Like, sometimes I would fix stuff myself. Sometimes I would hire someone, just depending on what it was, how much the repair was, whether I could handle it, whether I wanted to handle it, type of thing. And then the ones that we did buy that needed repairs, I already had such a decent idea about what stuff would cost. I didn't feel that I needed to get estimates beforehand, because I had, oh gosh, probably 10 years of experience landlording, or not 10, maybe 8 years of experience. But I felt like I knew what I was doing. You know, once you have that level of confidence, it's easier to make decisions.
Right.
You know?
Right. So, and that was my question. I didn't know if you bought them, because some people will buy them, gut them, turn them over as brand new, start renting them. I mean, because the properties I go after, I can't rent those in the condition they're in.
Yeah.
It's either water damaged or hoarding situation. So it's usually a gut redo, which isn't the quickest method. Like, getting something that's operational, cash flowing right away seems very great to me right now, because the last few projects we've taken on have been, I mean, the last one we tore the house down completely. So
How quickly does it typically take you to, once you purchase the property, to get it? Well, you said the other ones were cash flowing. Never mind. I was gonna say, how quickly does it typically take you to get tenants in there? But if you're already purchasing them with tenants in there, then the question's answered.
And
Yeah, I said it.
oh, sorry, what were you saying?
No, I was gonna say, yeah, I can't answer that because the ones that I bought were already had
Yeah.
tenants, and then the one that I am working on, I haven't finished yet, so I don't know how long it will take me.
Right.
But like on that, there's a lot of people that don't like taking on other people's tenants because they're like, oh, they're gonna think like this new company is coming in and give like pushback. Well, the last landlord did it this way, and well, I'm not gonna do it because I've been living here for 3 years and that's just how we've been doing it. Can you tell, like, do you get any of that stuff, or is it all?
I understand that sentiment, and I will say that you can usually get a good feeling for what kind of situation you're going to walk into by kind of reading the tea leaves. You can kind of see how the prior owner has maintained the place, how
Right.
what it looks like when you go in there, what the different apartments look like when you see it. If a tenant won't let you in under any circumstances, obviously that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Like you can usually get a feeling for that. And that honestly is something that would have gone into my decision to purchase.
Yeah.
If it was a great property, but it had good property, but it had what I thought were bad tenants, then I may not want to inherit that headache. I may not buy that place.
Yeah. I mean, there have been people that have had to hire like private security guards just
Really?
to roam the apartment. Yeah, because they'll buy. So there's one, I was talking to a guy who bought one. It was a great cash flowing apartment. It got sold. The new owner just didn't do anything with it. Things were falling apart. Stuff wasn't working. Vandalism outside. It could have been a bit embellished a little bit, but the first thing he did once he bought the apartment complex was he factored in the cost of a security guard for 2 years, just to sit outside and pretty much roam the lobby to make sure that things stay clear. And with that, vacancy rose because people were moving out. But then after there was vacancy, he was going in and fixing the units. And then once he was all done, he was renting each unit for like $300 to $400 more. And so by the end of it, when he sold it, he made a couple million on it because it's no longer a low income, rougher apartment complex. So, but I mean, that's a cost that he had to factor in, was security to try and clean it. I mean,
that's great that he foresaw that and he added value, and he had a strategy. And
but that's somebody that's confident to do that. Like, I don't know if I would take on that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't play in certain markets in Dayton either. Like everything, like I don't know how to make money in a D or C class neighborhood, C class maybe, but I don't know that business of making money in like D neighborhoods. I kind of have stuck to what I know, and that's like B type neighborhoods that are stable and you can get high quality tenants. That's always what I've done. To me, it's, I'm sure people make a lot of money doing it. I just don't know how.
Yeah. And that's the thing where when you get into it, you can make a whole business on just those markets.
Yeah.
Stick to a class and just stay there. And that's where like people are trying to pull me into like Milwaukee County. And they're like, oh, the rent rolls are so much higher in there. And I was like, yeah, it's far from my house.
Yeah.
Like, I would just rather stay where I'm at, and I like it. I know it, and that's where I'll stick. So.
All right, guys, I think it's coming to the time where I get my one last question.
And I'm interested in this one because I feel like he's gonna have a cool one.
All right. So the question that I always get to ask is, what's been your favorite DIY project that you've completed? It could be ever, like anytime.
And I don't want to put the pressure on, but you've bought stuff for military, like weaponry. and you're building a cabin. So this better be a good one.
Okay. I think my favorite DIY project is so I live in Dayton, and this is a project I did for the cabin. We have a lumber seller who salvages yard trees that people have cut down, and he cuts them into slabs and then he sells them.
Yeah.
And I went and I bought one of these slabs from him. And I had him, he has a big fancy table with a massive router head that surfaces them and makes them super flat. So I bought one of these slabs, I had him surface it, and then we like sliced it into a countertop shape.
Oh, cool.
And we took so we made the front edge straight, and then we took the live edge and we folded it over and made it the backsplash. So it was it was a hard maple countertop. And then I put undermount sink, and I put an undermount sink in it. So I cut a big hole in the surface of the countertop and undermounted a sink. And then I put a drop in range in it.
Okay.
And I thought it came out super cool. And it had like some cracks in it that I filled with epoxy.
Sweet.
I dyed the epoxy black, and then I put bow ties or Dutch boys. They basically are like little stitch looking things.
Yeah.
Together. And so so I made this countertop. I thought it came out super cool. I was really happy with it. So that I would say is my coolest DIY.
Do you have a picture of said?
I do, yeah. I mean, it's
all right. You have to email it over to us because we're going to include it in the show notes from today.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I have it on my Instagram, and I have a video. I have a whole video about making it, actually.
Well, then send it all. Send it all to us. We want everything.
That's sweet.
That'd be awesome.
That live edge stuff, I want to get into it, but man, it like scares me a little bit.
The hardest stuff, I basically, like, the guy that I bought it from, he did it, like, slicing it and surfacing it. Like, I just basically outsourced that to the guy I bought it from. But
I gotcha.
So it's not as hard as it sounds if you have someone do that stuff for you.
Yeah.
That's really cool, though.
Yeah, it's absolutely cool. I feel like one day I'm going to get one of those live edge saws and try to cut one myself because it looks super interesting. But we'll see. I like that backsplash though. I like that idea.
Yeah, I know. That's really cool.
I can't wait to see that.
That's a fabulous creation. Good job.
Yeah. Well, cool. We'll include the link to that YouTube. If we get the picture, we'll include the picture too. But what I want to do right now before we hop off here, what is your YouTube channel so people can start watching those videos, including myself?
Okay, it's called A Cabin in 50 Acres.
Okay.
All right.
And like if you Google that or anything close to it, it'll probably pop up.
Awesome.
So my son watches those videos of the guys like overseas that build like pools in the ground with just like little picks, and it's all in fast forward.
Oh yeah.
So I'm wondering if my son is going to want to watch this.
He might. Like, some of my stuff is like that. Some of the videos are like faster paced where, you'll start with nothing and you'll end with something cool.
Yeah.
So those are usually the most popular ones, the ones that have like a defined project and, a start and a finish to them.
Yeah.
On the YouTube channel, we're good to go.
Oh, you found it? All right, cool.
Perfect. If you have one for epoxy, me and my son will watch it because we're pouring a bar top tonight.
Okay.
So
I have a couple of videos that I do epoxy in, but I don't have one specifically dedicated to it.
That's right. Any background for him will help him mix. But thanks again for coming on. I'm excited to see what your next steps are. I know that you're not like pushing right now, which I think is great, but you're in a spot where you don't really need to. But when that cabin's done, I'm excited to see it. And then I'm excited to see what the next steps are, because I know you're not done.
Nice. Thank you guys. It's been fun talking to you.
Yeah.
We appreciate
Our
it.
pleasure.
And when I get out to Ohio, we'll meet up for lunch or something.
Seriously, look me up. Anyone, Dayton, Ohio. I mean, it's, crossroads of 70 and 75. If you're coming through, just stop in.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Definitely.
All right.
Thanks,
All right, thanks
guys.
a lot.
Have a great night. Enjoy your
Yeah.
4th of July. Happy 4th.
Yeah, happy 4th of July.
Same to you.
All right, see ya.
Bye, y'all.
Later.